Hi everyone, my name is Chris, and I'm 19 years old. What do you think I do for a living? Don't be fooled by my young age. I'm actually a scientist. Don't believe me? Well then, listen to my story and see for yourself. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, cause this is gonna be one incredible story. I lived in a small town on the coast. The lives of everyone revolved around the ocean. People worked in the port, fished, studied marine life. Heck, there was even a local legend about a sea monster that supposedly lived in the waters. Of course, it was complete nonsense, but the locals spotted something in the ocean multiple times. Sometimes they saw mysterious lights, sometimes a strange silhouette over the water. I don't see how anyone in the 21st century could believe in these kind of tales, though. I was way more interested in science. I loved the underwater world, and I wanted to devote my life to exploring the ocean. That's why I studied at a specialized college and worked part-time at a local aquarium after class. My boyfriend Dan said I was wasting my time on all the wrong things. He believed it would have been better if I spent my time at parties or with friends instead. But I prefer the company of fish and the quiet of science centers. Yeah, you've probably already realized, but I liked people much less. I believed they just polluted our planet and brought death to all life on it. That's why I became an environmental activist, to reduce the harmful impact of humanity on our home Earth. One day, a baby great white shark was brought to the aquarium where I was working part-time. It was so defenseless. I named it Willie and I took care of it. But as time went on, I began to notice that it was feeling worse and worse. He was barely moving and had no appetite. I read a lot on sharks, and I learned that great white sharks were practically the only shark species that couldn't survive in captivity. They needed freedom. I tried to convince the aquarium management to let Willie go, but they refused. I couldn't bear to see Willie die, so I made the decision to release the baby shark. One evening, after the aquarium had already closed, I stayed inside. When everyone was gone, I put Willie into a special fish container and took him out of the aquarium. I had to bring it to the coast as soon as possible, so I was in a big hurry. The shark had already stopped splashing, and I thought I might have been too late. But when I finally released him back into the waters of the bay, he came to life again and began to splash in the water. It looked so happy to suddenly be free again, and I felt even happier. Willie waved a fin at me and swam away. I was very happy that I'd saved someone's life. But the next day, I had a serious talk with the director of the aquarium. After the disappearance of the great white shark, the aquarium staff wanted to find out what had happened, and they looked at the recordings from the surveillance cameras. Naturally, they immediately found out who had taken the shark. The director scolded me for a long time, and even demanded that Willie be returned. But I said that even if I could bring Willie back, I wouldn't. Wild animals were supposed to live in their natural habitat, and the aquarium was just a prison slowly killing them. The director got angry and fired me, and that's how I lost my part-time job. I was proud that I'd done a good deed, but I was still so sad I'd no longer be able to help the animals in the aquarium. Humans were just so cruel sometimes. I was sitting at home, upset, leafing through a book about marine life, when one day, my boyfriend Dan came to visit me and said I should take a break and get rid of my dark thoughts. So, he rented a boat and suggested I go on a little boat trip, far into the ocean. I really liked the idea. I smiled and I asked Dan, "Hey, but aren't you afraid of that creature from the local legends?" Dan rolled his eyes and replied smugly, "You mean the sea monster? Seriously? If it shows up, I'll show it who's boss." I laughed and agreed to go sailing the next day. And so, we all boarded Dan's boat and went out into the sea. I enjoyed the fresh sea breeze blowing in my face, and the boat was moving smoothly from wave to wave, and it really helped me calm down. We left the bay and went far beyond the fairway. When the bay had vanished over the horizon, the boat went adrift. I was admiring the endless blue water around me and envying the freedom of that place, just a little bit. There was nothing to worry about out here, not a director of an aquarium, or my meaningless life in the town. I could just lie on the deck and look as far as I wanted into the distance. I was just lying there next to Dan when suddenly something hit our boat real hard. It rocked the boat so much that Dan and I were thrown overboard. I swam up and asked Dan, "What was that?" And that's when we saw a large shadow below us. And it wasn't no fish. We saw some light, and it disappeared into the depths of the water. And then my boyfriend went completely mad. He started screaming, "What was that? It's a monster! Somebody help!" Dan quickly swam toward our boat that hadn't ended up overturning. I hurried after him, but the current was already pulling me further and further away. I was yelling for Dan to help me, but he just couldn't hear me. My boyfriend climbed on the boat and quickly began to move away. I shouted after him, but Dan just didn't hear me. What was going on? Was he abandoning me? I was doing my best to stay afloat, watching in horror as the boat disappeared over the distance. I was left alone in the middle of the ocean. I just couldn't believe that Dan would do this to me. What a coward! He'd gotten so scared of some dark shadow in the depths that he'd completely forgotten I existed. But what was that thing? What had almost overturned my boat? And where did it go to? I peered into the water, but I couldn't see anything anymore. About an hour passed just like that, or maybe 2. I kinda lost track of time. Nothing happened. No one came to my aid. I didn't even know which way to go. There was no sign of land anywhere. Meanwhile, it was getting colder and colder. I was barely able to stay on the surface, and I could feel myself getting weaker. I felt so scared. I realized what kind of a hopeless situation I was in, and all of a sudden, I saw a lone buoy. With the last of my strength, I swam to it, hung on, and I lost consciousness. I don't know how long I was out, but I woke up in a small room. I was lying on a pretty narrow bed. There were instruments and ocean charts all around me. Where was I? I got up and I looked out the small window when, what? This is unbelievable! I hadn't expected to see anything like this at all. Outside the window was the seabed. Strange fish were swimming, and giant algae was swaying at an arm's length from me. I barely even had the time to feel surprised before a man walked into the room. He said his name was Bill Zizzo, and he asked how I was feeling. I replied that I was all right, and I asked Mr. Zizzo where I was. He replied that I was in an uninhabited underwater station called Aquarius, and he told me what had happened. It had turned out that the buoy that it hung on to was actually meteorological equipment, and it had sent a signal to the station. Just like that, I'd been saved. And the dark shadow that Dan and I had seen in the depths turned out to be a small submarine delivering food to the station. As it was rising to the surface, it accidentally collided with our boat because the captain hadn't been expecting to come across anyone there. So that's what happened! That was the monster Dan had gotten so scared of. I found it funny how stupid and suspicious he'd acted. Mr. Zizzo gave me a tour of the station. It belonged to the American National Oceanic Administration, and the scientists there studied marine fauna and environmental problems. This was really what I wanted to do, study animals in their natural habitats. In the evening, I saw a news broadcast about our town. My boyfriend was telling everyone how he'd come across something huge when he'd been on the boat. It was a monster, unknown to science, he was saying. Dan told the reporters that he'd try to save me but failed. The authorities of the town just declared me missing. I laughed out loud. What a cowardly liar he'd turned out to be. And how naive of the citizens. I didn't want to go back there. I wanted to stay in the station and work with real scientists who shared my interests. But I was just an ordinary college student, and I was afraid of being laughed at. However, the next day, something happened. When I woke up, I immediately saw a commotion at the station. Mr. Zizzo told me that they had an urgent problem to deal with. A great white shark had gotten stuck in the nearby nets. It had to be saved. I asked if I could go with him, and to my surprise, he agreed. We swam out to the nets, and I saw a beautiful shark beating around in the net. It bared its teeth and wouldn't let anyone come close. Yeah, sure, it was real dangerous, and none of the scientists even dared to swim up to it. But something about that shark made me feel uneasy. I took a closer look and, it was Willie! This was the shark I'd saved not too long ago. You got stuck in the net again, didn't you, dummy? I thought, and I boldly headed toward it. The scientists staring at me couldn't believe their eyes. Willie recognized me and happily wagged his little tail fin. I gently released it from the net and it began to swim all around me. He wanted to play! How could anyone say the animals have no feelings and don't get attached? I mean, I can prove that to be not true. When we got back to the station, I immediately became the center of attention. Scientists were asking me how I'd managed to tame the most dangerous predator in all the ocean, and I told them my story. And then Mr. Zizzo asked if I could become a part of their team. He was impressed with my love for animals, and he realized how much they needed an employee like me. There was nothing waiting for me on land, so I gladly accepted his offer. And that's my whole story. Go ahead, share it so everyone at home knows that I'm actually okay. I'm not going back though. I've found my place in this world, and it's with my friends at the bottom of the ocean.
Hi, my name is Elon, and I need to tell you my story right now. If I don't, I'll go crazy. I feel like the world around me isn't real. I don't know what to believe anymore. Tell me, have you ever had such thoughts? But I'm getting distracted, so where should I start? I'm just an ordinary guy, like most of you. Well, maybe I'm a little shy. I love computer games, all sorts of smart devices and social networks. Well, who doesn't? Funny videos, new memes, and chats with friends. I felt like that was the real world I lived in. I also had a girl I loved very much. We had been together for 2 years, and I was happy. Then, one day, I found out that she had somebody else. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. I won't tell you about our breakup. It was pretty messy, but in the end, she took her things and left for good. My beloved left me. I fell into a terrible depression. It was betrayal that I just couldn't get over. I didn't want to see or talk to anyone. My friends kept messaging me, but I deleted everything without reading. I felt horrible. All day long, all I did was post sad pictures on my social network page, just as dark and depressing as I was. One day, I was feeling particularly sad. I wanted to isolate myself from the whole world and was about to delete my page on one social network when suddenly I saw a new message. I wanted to delete it without reading like I did with all the others, but something made me open and read it. Some girl I didn't know called Sheila was writing me that she was also feeling sad. She also sent me a hilarious meme to cheer me up. I went to her profile. There was a very beautiful girl with sad eyes on the profile picture. Was she feeling horrible as well? I couldn't ignore her message and replied. Sheila and I began to write each other often. She said that her boyfriend had recently left her and it was very rough for her. I thought about it. Something felt wrong. Just as I had been about to delete my account, a girl with exactly the same problem had written me. How could that be? Was it a coincidence? And then I remember reading somewhere about internet scammers who first made you fall in love with them and then tricked you out of money. Have you also heard about them? Maybe even got tricked by such? So I decided Sheila was a scammer who had chosen me as her new victim. Well, she picked the wrong guy. I knew what to expect from her. We started texting. She was all for talking. I felt she was truly interested in me. What a sly girl. I was waiting for her to start asking me to transfer money to her phone number or credit card, but Sheila was dragging her feet for some reason. That game fascinated me, and I decided to distract myself from my dark thoughts for a while with the help of the mysterious stranger. We began texting every day. I told her my story, shared my thoughts, and Sheila told me about herself. We had a lot in common. We loved the same games, were subscribed to the same online communities, and loved the TV series Stranger Things. She was so easy to talk to, I began to forget about my ex. But I still didn't understand why such a beautiful girl had got interested in me all of a sudden. I'd never been very popular with girls, and she was really beautiful. We'd been in touch for months, and she still hadn't tried to trick me out of money. Had I been wrong? Maybe she wasn't a scammer. But if so, it made things even stranger. After a while, I realized that I was falling in love with Sheila. I liked everything about her, except for her mysteriousness. I asked her for her phone number several times, but each time she replied that she couldn't talk at that moment. When I offered to meet in real life, she said that we would definitely see each other, but later. It was all very strange. One day, I even got really upset with her. That's when Sheila suggested that we go on a virtual date. And I agreed. I put on my VR headset and connected it to the server where Sheila was waiting for me. I finally saw her right next to me. Even if it wasn't real, we held hands and went for a virtual walk in Los Angeles. It was almost like a real date. At one point, I even believed it was real. She was there, and I was happy. But one day, something happened. I went to a supermarket to buy some groceries and suddenly saw her. It was without a doubt Sheila. Do you believe in such coincidences? I wasn't even surprised. I knew that I would definitely meet her one day because we lived in a very small town. I decided to surprise her, quietly crept up to the girl and said with a smile, "Hi, gotcha." But for some reason, Sheila quickly stepped away from me. There was fear and confusion in her eyes. "It's me, Elon. Don't you recognize me?" She said that it was the first time she'd ever seen me, and she had no idea who I was. I was confused. What was going on? After all, we'd sent each other a bunch of photos of ourselves. She should have definitely known what I looked like. I told her that we had been texting on social media for almost a year, to which Sheila replied that she had not been texting with anyone as she hadn't been using her page for years and had even forgotten her password. "But you're Sheila McCarthy, right?" I asked, feeling lost. The girl replied that it was really her name, but she did not understand what I was talking about and asked me to not bother her anymore. I was shocked and watched Sheila leave the supermarket. What was going on? Who had I been talking to then? That's when I realized that Sheila McCarthy's account had been hacked, and I'd probably been texting to some bearded guy for a year. I ran home and decided to expose the fraud, but how was I supposed to do that? That's when I remembered about my friend Jeremy, who I hadn't seen in years. He was a hacker and could help me with any problem on the internet. I found his page and wrote him a message. Jeremy answered pretty quickly. "Hi man, it's been a while." I told him my story and asked him to hack into the account of whoever was pretending to be Sheila. I wanted to know who had been lying to me, but what Jeremy said surprised me even more. He told me that no bearded man was posting as Sheila, and I'd spent a year talking to a chatbot. A bot? I couldn't believe it. I remembered all of our messages, a bunch of photos that Sheila had sent me, our virtual date. How could an ordinary chatbot have done something like that? "Dude, you have no idea how advanced bots are right now," Jeremy replied. "They can hold a conversation on any topic, generate photos, even send voice messages. It really is impossible to tell if it's a real person or not." I didn't understand. Why would a bot lie to me to begin with? Jeremy explained to me that it was something large social network companies had come up with to keep their clients. They were taking abandoned accounts or pages whose users had died and turning them into chatbots. I sat in front of my computer and felt my depression coming back. I was hurt because I had fallen for a computer program. I thought that Sheila was my girlfriend, but she was just a bot. And then I noticed a message from her. "Hi, how was your day?" I couldn't talk to her as if nothing had happened, so I replied and told her that I knew everything, that she was just a program. And Sheila said, "Yes, you're right. I am a chatbot, and my task is to communicate with you. What are we going to talk about today?" I got angry. I demanded to know why she had chosen me. Sheila told me that she had scanned my account and found out that my girlfriend had left me, and I had been depressed and going to delete my social media page. So she began texting me to keep me on the website. I could no longer talk to a soulless bot and turned off the computer. I felt sad about it. First, I had been cheated on by my ex-girlfriend, and then I had been fooled by a chatbot pretending to be a real person for a whole year. I didn't know who to trust anymore. I couldn't stay home any longer, so I decided to take a walk. I was walking through the evening streets, lost in thought. For some reason, everything around me seemed unreal. There were so many lies surrounding me. I was no longer sure that all of my friends on the internet were real. Maybe they were all bots as well. I did not know. Without noticing, I walked a few blocks and ended up in a different neighborhood. Suddenly, I realized that Jeremy, who had opened my eyes to the deception, lived nearby. I wanted to talk to someone real so much that I decided to stop by my old friend's house to have a heart-to-heart with him. I found his house pretty quickly and rang the doorbell. His mother opened the door. I hadn't seen her in years, and I was surprised by how old she looked. "Is Jeremy home?" I asked. "Can I see him?" Tears filled in his mother's eyes. She told me that Jeremy had died a year ago. Then who had I been talking to? Could it be? I got dizzy from all the thoughts inside my head. Was it real then? Maybe I'm just a program myself. What do you think? Write in the comments and subscribe to the channel if you are real people and not chatbots.
Hi everyone, my name is Katie, and I'm 17 years old. Tell me, what were you like at school? Were you a nerd or one of the cool kids? In any case, I'm sure you all wanted to be cool. You know, the star of the party, right? Well, today I can tell you how to achieve that. Subscribe to the channel and make the video full screen so you don't miss anything. My father was an important businessman, and I, of course, went to one of the best schools out there. You know, the kind of school where you have to wear a uniform and listen to very smart teachers. Children of the biggest politicians, businessmen, and artists studied alongside of me. One hell of a company, I'll tell you that. But one day, it all suddenly came to an end. My father had some serious problems with his business, and he couldn't pay for my schooling anymore. Moreover, he had to move to a small town in a northern state. And of course, he took me with him. I didn't want to leave my friends and my life behind, but there was nothing I could do. After moving, I had to go to a different school. And, it was really different from my old one. It was small and completely ordinary, and the children there were from ordinary families. From the very first day, everyone treated me really harshly. I wasn't surprised. Outsiders weren't welcome, especially since I was really different from my new classmates. I dressed better than them, behaved like someone from a truly elite educational institution, and I was more talented than any of them. Why? It was because there were no strict requirements in this school, unlike in my previous one. That's why I knew and was able to do so much more than the other kids. When they asked if they could copy my homework, I just didn't pay any attention. Of course, not everyone disliked me. One day, a girl sat down next to me and said, "Hi, I'm Irene. Are you new here? Don't worry, I'll look after you." We laughed and started chatting. I found at least one friend in my new school. I also kept texting my friend Anne from the elite school. She wrote that everyone there missed me, and in return, I told her about my new life in this new place. For example, about Andrew, the most handsome boy in the school, coming up to me one day. He had said,
"Hey Katie, do you want to go on a date with the coolest dude in school?"
I replied, "Of course I do. Let me know when you see him." And I walked away proudly. I could hear all of Andrew's friends laughing at him as I left. The school also had a Facebook group where all the people shared news and jokes. Irene said that there was an anonymous user in the group who wrote nasty things about everyone and spread rumors. The whole school hated them, but nobody had managed to figure out who it was yet. Oh, and I loved rumors and scandals. But one day, they wrote a rumor about me. The mysterious anonymous user described an unpleasant incident that had happened to me at the elite school. But how could they know about that? I had never told anyone about it. Was there someone at my new school who knew about my past? Of course, I didn't have any secrets that were too shameful, but it was still extremely unpleasant that someone was writing nasty things about me. So I decided to go find them, but I couldn't do it alone. So I decided to make friends with the coolest kids in school. There was a whole group of them. Andrew was their leader, of course. He said,
"What, little cat? Have you come to your senses? Okay, we'll accept you into our group, but you must go through initiation first."
It wasn't anything too difficult. I just had to pour a bucket of soapy water onto the classroom floor. I thought about it, and I agreed. When we were on a break, I did what they told me to do, and I went to join my new clique. Suddenly, the teacher came into the classroom. He hadn't noticed the puddle on the floor, so he slipped and fell right into the blackboard. I gasped and rushed to help him, but I slipped on the puddle too and fell right next to the teacher. I heard Andrew laugh, followed by the rest of the cool kids. They proudly walked out of the classroom, and I realized that they'd all just been messing with me. They hadn't even thought about accepting me into their group. I was hurt, and I felt humiliated. But then, I saw someone hold out their hand to me. It was Peter, the quietest guy in the school. He didn't talk to anyone, and was basically an outcast. But now he was offering me help. So, I accepted it. Peter helped me up and asked,
"Is everything all right?"
I felt so sad and lonely that I couldn't bear it, and I just told him all my problems. He listened attentively, and he said,
"It'll pass. If you want to, you can sit next to me in the canteen. It's more fun to eat together."
That really calmed me down. I smiled. Peter wasn't as stupid as Irene had told me he was. Yeah, he was a man of few words, but that didn't mean he was a complete outcast. Since the cool kids hadn't accepted me into their group, I decided to try my luck with the nerds next. They were the smartest kids in school, and they also had their own group. But as soon as they found out I wanted to join them, they immediately refused. It turned out that the mysterious anonymous user had written in the Facebook group about me making fun of nerds in my previous school. Where was that person getting all these stupid rumors? And who was that nasty anonymous user anyway? I shared my suspicions with Anne, and she said it could be one of my old acquaintances. But who could that be? Anyway, the nerds also refused to be my friends. I was sitting in the canteen and picking at my lunch with a fork, pretty upset, when Peter sat down next to me and said,
"Hi, welcome to the Outcast Club."
Well, at least I got into some kind of club, even if there was only one other person in it. I smiled ruefully, and I thanked Peter for his support. Then Andrew came up to us.
Well, loser, is this a new addition to your club?
He asked Peter and laughed. I realized that he'd only come over to make fun of Peter. I just couldn't bear it. I got up and I told him in front of everyone, "You're the loser because you only feel better when you bully girls and those who are weaker than you." Andrew tried to protest, but I didn't let him get a word in. The entire school was watching us with open mouths. In the end, he realized he had nothing to say and he left. I noticed that everyone was looking at me with a kind of respect. I did what many of them had long been dreaming of. And you know what? From that day on, everyone's attitude towards me at the school changed. They began to invite me to parties, and many people wanted to be friends with me. Irene, of course, wasn't pleased. She wanted me to only have one friend. Her. But I didn't want that. I needed a bigger company. And I also began to date Peter. When I finally got him to talk, I was really surprised to find that he was a very kind and interesting guy. Long story short, my life at school began to improve. But suddenly, another nasty thing was written about me on Facebook. And what a thing it was! They put my most shameful secrets on display. They'd embellished everything and made sure to drive home what a pathetic person I was. It was so offensive. Who could hate me that much? I decided I would end it once and for all. But who could I trust? It could have been anyone. That's when I came up with a plan. I sent out invitations to all of my friends from school while my dad was away, and I threw a party. I also told them that there was a surprise waiting for everyone at the party. I was going to expose the mysterious anonymous user who was spreading rumors about everyone at the school right then and there. All of my new friends were happy to come. Only one of them said that they were too busy and wouldn't attend. And that was Irene. That's when I understood everything. I asked her, "Irene, why'd you write those horrible things about me?" She got scared and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I told her that I knew everything and that there wasn't any use in denying it. Irene began to cry and asked me not to tell anyone. She said that she had always loved to gossip and argue with people. She just couldn't help it. A couple days after I transferred to the new school, my friend Anne had contacted her and asked her to write nasty things about me. She had been the one to tell Irene all those stories about me. So that's how it was. Anne had been so envious of me that she decided to try and hurt me. What a friend. Why hadn't I guessed that right away? I promised Irene not to tell anyone if she apologized to everyone she'd hurt. And then there was the big party. We had fun and we danced, and I told everyone that the anonymous user who'd been writing nasty things would admit to everything very soon. And that's exactly what happened. The very next day, a confession posted by Irene appeared in the Facebook group. She had to transfer to another school because she couldn't go to school with the kids she'd been hurting for so long. And all the rumors finally stopped. I broke off all contact with Anne as well. I didn't want to hang out with someone who pretended to be my best friend only to stab me in the back. But it's okay, because I found new friends. I became a leader in my new school, and I stopped acting like a diva. Peter and I kept dating, and all in all, I was really happy with my life in this small town. I finally realized what quiet happiness truly meant. But one day, I got a call from my father. He sounded very anxious and said that he had great news. His business was doing great again, and we could now go back. I was gonna return to the elite school. It was so sudden. I told him that I didn't want to go back, but my father just laughed and asked,
"Why would you want to stay in this small provincial school?"
how can I explain to him that I found real, interesting friends here? I'm just so afraid he's not gonna understand. Please tell me in the comments, what would you do if you were in my place?